trying to do? We're trying to be balanced. We want our conscious mind focused on something that's beneficial for our subconscious to do the work, and we want our self-image to be built. So we want to have a strong self-image so that we can be balanced in competition. So we're seeking to be in the triad state. Now, when I think about goals, especially for you all for a run, these are goals that come to mind to me, and you tell me if you like these. Okay, first of all, to control your thoughts. What if you had the goal to make sure your thoughts were controlled by you? And we mentioned that last week, that your thoughts should be controlled by you and not by anyone else. So what if your thoughts were completely in your control? That would be a good goal to have. Trusting your training in a trial, so that you realize or believe that all of the work that you did leading up to this day was enough, that you've trained enough, that you're ready, that you're solid, that you can trust the plan that you have and you're going into the race. So trusting your training would be a great goal. And then believing in your ability as a handler, believing in your ability as a team, would make sense. And what's interesting is, so this one, controlling your thoughts, is your conscious mind goal, right? Trusting your training in your subconscious, believing in your ability is your self-image goal. Would it help if these were your primary goals for a trial? Would you do better? What do you think, Barbara?
Absolutely.
All right, raise your hand if you believe you do better. Awesome, people are raising hands. Raise your hand if you believe you do better, if you were able to control your thoughts, trust your training, and believe in your ability. Awesome. So what's exciting is when we're running a mental system, and a good mental system. Oh, you guys are so interactive. Everyone's raising their hand. That makes me happy, because at this time of day, I start to, do y'all do this where at the end of the day, you start to kind of dwindle, and you're not nearly as energetic or as excited as you are? I'm a morning person, so in the morning, I'm like all up, and then by the evening, I'm like, whew. And so y'all interacting really helps me. All right, so if you have these goals, here's what's cool. When you're running a mental system, the whole goal is to control your thoughts, trust your training, and believe in your ability, because it helps you be balanced. So those might be some really great things to write down as things to remember when you're going into your next trial. Who is trialing this weekend? Raise your hand if you have a trial this weekend. Anyone? Yeah. Awesome. A few of you. All right, phases of a task. There are 3 phases to every task that we do. The anticipation phase. The anticipation phase is when you're preparing to do something. So it's what you think about before the action. The anticipation phase for agility would begin when you receive any information about the run, the course map, walking the course. That's when your anticipation phase actually begins. The action phase is what you think about during the actual action. The action for you in this scenario would be the run. What do you think about while you run? And then the reinforcement phase is going to be what you think about after the action. So that would be after the run. So you want to control your thoughts before, you want to control your thoughts during, you want to control your thoughts after. So we break these into categories. So let's think about the relationship between these. The anticipation phase relates to the conscious mind, because we're thinking a lot right before the run, right? We have to determine our strategy, determine our plan, rehearse that strategy. Then we have to control our thoughts as we're coming into the ring, or controlling your thoughts right before you release your dog. It's a lot of thinking right then. But then during the run, in the action phase, that relates to the subconscious. We don't want to be thinking so much while we're running, right? We want to be able to trust that we know how to do the handling that we're going to do, and we can do it kind of almost like a dance, right? Where it's a little bit more fluid. Well, that would be more subconscious. And then the reinforcement phase is afterwards. That's when your self-image grows or shrinks the most. And usually it's because you have a lot of emotion that's attached to after you do something. There's some emotion that's attached to it. If it was really good, you're happy. If it's really bad, you're probably not very happy, and there's emotion there too. So if it's positive, self-image grows. If it's negative, self-image shrinks. So the reinforcement phase actually connects to self-image. Now, what's interesting to me is the anticipation phase and the action phase tend to only affect the task that you're about to attempt. So that's great. You're rehearsing what you want to do, what you plan to do, and you do it. But your reinforcement phase, because it's affecting self-image so much, it then affects all of the rest of the tasks that you attempt. So what happens is, if you have a bad run, and your reinforcement of that run is negative, and you are talking about what you did wrong, and you're dwelling on what you did wrong, and you're worried that it's going to happen again, your self-image is shrinking, and then the next run won't go as well. But the opposite is also true. If you have a run and you focus on what went well, and you're building your self-image and you're building your confidence, then the next run probably be better. Or as good, hopefully. So what is the mental management mental system? What is a mental system? A mental system defines the optimum thing to think about before, during, and after a task. So your mental system is your thoughts before, during, and after. Basically what it is. And you're going to define what it is that you want to think about. Now here's the thing. Your mental system is going to be different than someone else's. What you're going to choose to think about, especially in the mental program piece, is going to be different than someone else. So what works for Barbara may or may not work for you. So we're going to have some examples, and she's going to share what she does, and I'll share some other examples, and I want you all to chime in with anything that you've either used in the past or liked, and then we can have a discussion about it. But it's not all going to work for everybody. Everybody has different dogs, they have different experiences, they have different personalities, so it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. But the system is the same, no matter what. So what we have here is we're going to execute, the action is going to be to run. The anticipation phase is going to include both preload and mental programs. We're going to break down preload, okay? Here's a little course that you're going to run today. The first thing that you do is you determine a strategy for that task. So you would be walking the course and determining how you want to run that course, okay? Then you're going to commit to that strategy, and then you're going to rehearse that strategy. Now, what we're going to do is probably break a second and have a little discussion on this piece. So your preload is you determine the strategy. How do you plan to run this course based on how the course is laid out, what your skills are, what your dog is like? You're going to come up with a strategy. And then to me, one of the most important steps that is missed a lot is this commitment step. Step number 2, commit to the strategy. I believe that you should commit, if at all possible, before you get your dog out. Like, you should be committed to what you plan to do before you start warming your dog up. It would be great. I don't know if it's always possible, but I think that would be great, so that whenever you're with your animal and your partner, you know what you're doing. You're solid. You're committed. You're ready. And then you're rehearsing the process. You're rehearsing that run over and over again in your mind. Not only what you plan to do, but how you want to feel while you do it. So that's your rehearsal. So your strategy is your chosen plan for success in the run. How do you plan to handle the course? That's what your strategy is. And then your rehearsal, commitment. Being 100% sold on the strategy. Not only sold on what you plan to do, but sold on your ability to do it. Not just, well, this would be a great strategy for Barbara. No, this is a great strategy for me. Like, I can do this 100%. And then you mentally rehearse your execution and the feeling of performing well. And I would say that your last mental rehearsal before you enter the ring should be the rehearsal of how you want to feel, not just what you want to do. Because that almost transfers from your head to your heart a little bit, and it's like, yes, it's like us to do that. All right, so I'm going to stop share a second, Barbara, so we can have a little bit of a discussion here on, are there any thoughts that you have, Barbara, on solidifying a plan, or what are some things that maybe people need to remember mentally when they go in to walk a course or determine what their strategy might be? Do you have any thoughts on that? We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday. So
yeah. So I start with, when I walk a course, I start by walking the dog's path first. That way I can see if there are any off-course obstacles that I maybe didn't notice when I was just looking at my paper map. So I walk the dog's line first, and then from there, I've already kind of decided a little bit my handling off of the paper map, but I solidify it more once I'm actually walking the course. Then I will take my particular dog that I'm running into play. So for instance, if the course calls for a wrap, but I know my dog doesn't particularly like wraps and may slice it, I will work through a few times of, okay, what will I do if they do this? And so I try to have a couple plans that I'm running through and putting into muscle memory so that if something doesn't go according to plan, I'm not a deer in the headlights. I can adjust and keep moving. So I will walk the whole 8 minutes, if possible. If I'm the first dog on the line and it's possible, I will walk with another height group so that I'm not rushed in my walk, but also my dog gets the appropriate warm-up, cool down. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes things change and you have to go with the flow and you just do what you got to do. But I tend to have my plan pretty solidified when I leave the walkthrough. Now, I will go and watch runs. And sometimes I will see in the course that maybe there was some issues with footing that I didn't take into consideration, or maybe once I'm seeing dogs run, there is a line to a contact that I don't particularly like and dogs are struggling with it, and I may need to adjust my plan on the fly. What I will do from there is, if it's a particular move that I'm going to do differently, I may work that particular move at the warm-up jump and kind of visualize myself going through it in flow. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, but I try to make that happen. If you're just starting in the sport, I would recommend trying not to change your plan after you've walked. When you're first learning the sport, it's a little hard to change things on the fly than when you've been doing it for a while. But sometimes that happens and you just go with the flow and do what you can. But I do like to try to have my plan pretty solid. Sometimes it does change. When you're at a big event, things change where so when I run to win. I'm incredibly competitive, and I've been at big events where I was towards the end of the class and the lines I had chosen would be fine, except none of the dogs were clean. And so all I needed to do to win my class was get through clean. So the fast lines I had chosen that were maybe a little bit more risky, I actually changed most of them up to slower lines, but that I knew 100% we would be clean on so that I could win the class, because I didn't need to push after that because people weren't getting through clean. So things like that happen, and you have to kind of be able to change things on the fly, but that does take some time and practice to be able to do that.
That seems like that's a strategy for once you're at a certain level, right? So like when you're in the beginning, maybe
if you're a novice handler,
run the plan.
Yeah, just get your plan, stick with it. Try not to watch other people and go, well, theirs looked pretty. Someone has a question here. Sometimes if there's a questionable section that I'm not sure about, I will walk the course behind someone that I know handles their dog really well. Good idea or not? Yeah, that absolutely is something that you can do. The only thing that you need to be aware of is, depending on what level that handler and that dog team are, do you have